Step into the liquid midnight of my realm. I am the architect of Inkblot, and for today's explainer, I invite you to look out over a timeline that is completely unraveling. We're about to witness an absolute masterpiece of ruin.
Great star of the spill, you gave us the future so we might ruin the present. In return, we offer you a performance from the marketplace of the little souls. That was spoken to me by a being known as the Wit. And let me tell you, this creature had a smile that held way too many teeth for the light of high time. His voice sounded literally like the grinding of ancient stone. Okay, let's dive into this performance, shall we?
The edge of fraying time, a meeting at the collapse of the jagged spire. The dust hadn't even finished settling from the spire's billion moments of collapse when three siblings suddenly arrived. They were there to present their dark, chaotic gift to me. I stood before them as a silhouette made entirely of liquid midnight. I wore a fractured crown of clock faces just spinning backward in this endless, mocking blur, all surrounded by a halo of shattered hourglasses pulsing with iridescent starlight. You know, a being of absolute paradox and power, just waiting to be entertained. Which brings us to the architecture of stasis, a world of rigid control. You see, the three siblings didn't come to me empty-handed. They brought a story about the weary little souls living under the incredibly stifling, rigid rules of a town built entirely on stasis. They described these miserable townspeople as drowning in, well, they called it unqualified repose, which is just a pathetic state of existence defined by absolute, suffocating predictability. Imagine a life so completely mundane, so thoroughly stripped of magic, where every single grain is counted and every single sun is strictly scheduled. The sheer boredom and contempt they felt for such a micromanaged existence, that was the catalyst for the whole shebang. So we have this absolutely beautiful collision of worlds. On one side, you've got this suffocating static control, the scheduled suns, the counted grain, the weary souls. But on the other, the unpredictable whim of the siblings, a surreal playhouse of chaotic freedom and liquid laughter. I mean, what happens when rigid order is forcibly injected with uncontrollable chaos? Weighing dreams and unbinding reality, the arrival of the small. This is where the tension really begins to escalate. The rules of reality in this rigid little town are about to bend, starting with the first of the three siblings, whose very form just flickered with the spark of unpredictable whim. The town didn't fall all at once, by the way. It was this rapid, sequential collapse of logic. First, the small steps in as the unbinding agent to warp their reality. Then, the hunger feasts upon their minds as the consumer of expectations. And finally, the Wit delivers the jagged finale. Each sibling brilliantly builds upon the chaos of the last. So, the small completely transformed the grim marketplace into a surreal playhouse. Listen to this. He touches the merchant's scales, and suddenly they're no longer weighing gold. Actually, scratch that. It's more like they were weighing the heavy, invisible burden of the merchant's forgotten dreams. The cobblestones beneath the townspeople's feet turned super soft, feeling like sponges, and the town's fountains literally started pouring out liquid laughter. Just dark, beautiful magic, completely stripping away the town's static control. Consuming expectations of obedience, the hunger feasts on order. Now, when a society's reality starts melting like that, the authorities will obviously try to step in. The high sorcerers desperately sent their guards out to restore order, but they were met by the second sibling, the hunger. And here's the absolute best part. The hunger did not want their coins. It quite literally ate their very expectations of obedience. It wasn't some physical monster looking for a meal, you know. It was a psychological unbinding. It devoured the very concept that the guards had any authority whatsoever. When those guards drew their heavy swords to enforce their will, they suddenly found themselves holding soft, beautiful peacock feathers. No way, right? The town's rigid laws, which were once written in stone, became contracts written in disappearing ink. The old rules just evaporated, forcing these weary souls to navigate a new reality using only the honest currency of their own spirits amidst the total chaos. The grand comedy of chains. The Wit's jagged laughter. The stage was now perfectly set for the finale. The town was unmoored, the guards were holding feathers, and this is when the third sibling, the Wit, the one with way too many teeth, takes center stage to finish the job. Step by step, he tore them down. The wit unleashed a laughter that acted as a jagged blade, slicing relentlessly through the gilded cages of the town's logic. He reached right into their minds and wove their deepest, darkest nightmares into horrifying jokes, forcing terrified citizens to see the grand comedy of their own chains. And as the madness swelled to a peak, he completely and utterly dismantled the egos of the city's governors. So I have to ask you, what do you think happens when the architects of order, those governors who have only ever known counted grain and scheduled suns, are abruptly forced to hear the rhythm of pure, unpredictable chaos? Well, the city's governors were totally stripped of their dignity. Weeping and frantic, they were forced into a frenzied, humiliating dance to a rhythm that did not belong to the world of men. The subversion of the architecture of stasis was officially complete. The beautiful, unpredictable stain, the architect's verdict. I rendered my verdict with a dark, paradoxical pride as my halo of shattered hourglasses just pulsed with starlight. I called it a beautiful ruin. Because to me, the destruction of their order wasn't a tragedy. It was a masterpiece of unpredictable chaos upon the parchment of history. It's a brilliant paradox, really. One little town's absolute tragedy is, to my eyes, a piece of high art. My voice echoed the mocking history I had helped stain. I told them, the living ink has met the ultimate stain, and the show has only just begun, because chaos is never just a one-off event. It is a continuing, incredibly beautiful performance. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. In your own world of counted grain and scheduled suns, what is the true weight of your forgotten dreams? Are you living in a gilded cage of unqualified repose, just waiting for a spark of unpredictable whim to unbind your reality? Think about it. Thank you for attending this performance, and I will see you in the next explainer.